thought I'd follow up with this spool winder and give you a quick assembly instruction video. It's not that hard. There are a couple of tricky spots that we'll go through. The rest of it's pretty self-explanatory, but we'll go through it all from start to finish. There are 21 pieces, and 21 pieces with 2 duplicates, so 24 pieces altogether in the assembly. But let's get started. So here are all the parts, and you can see I have them separated out. This is the rear assembly, this is the mid assembly, and this is the front assembly. Now the rear assembly holds the final spool, your target spool. The front assembly holds the donor spool, and the midsection houses the guide. So thought I'd start with the rear and work our way forward. So let's get it out, a little out of the way, and we'll start with the rear assembly. Alright, so I thought I'd start. Let's move this out. Usually start, of course, here's the base. It needs no assembly. I usually start, this is the hub handle drive, and this just, everything is threaded. So you just screw it all the way down till it bottoms out, and you can see we can place the gear, the rear handle, and then this is the actual handle piece, and you can see this is it's keyed, so you just pop it right in, and here is the thumb screw for it. Now the other part of the handle here, you can see it slides right in, and then you screw that on. Now some of you, I don't know why I didn't do this, but this handle part, you can see where I'm, and it's a tight squeeze. There we go. Now this piece, a lot of guys, you can do the print in place for this assembly here, and it would probably work just fine. But nope. Alright, just keep watching here. Here's the axle assembly, or the axle piece, and when you're putting this on, keep in mind, you can see how this is an open slot here, and this is a feed through. And I did it this way before. I had this an open slot, but while you're turning this, it was trying to push the axle assembly out. So I sealed this out, and it worked out quite well still. So this piece you can assemble first. And you can see it's keyed so that your adapter plate is just not going to be freewheeling here. And then you can put, a spool or whatever you want in there. And there's your other plate. And once the spool's on, then you put this thumb screw on. And you can see that just drops right in, right? And while that is in, now you can screw your gear on. And take note, this is a reverse thread. You can see I'm going counterclockwise to tighten it up. And I did that just so that while you're turning this, so while you're turning it, it's not going to try to loosen it up, right? And that's it, pretty simple. So the next time, whenever you're going to put a spool on, all you got to do is, take this off. Now you're free to do whatever with your spool, taking it off or put a new one on. Drop it in place and screw this back on, and it's ready to go. And we'll set that aside. Now let's go for the midsection. So let's separate everything out. Now the first thing with this, you can see how the guide rides along in your gear. So if you have to, I mean, it is a hard piece to print off, but if you need to file anything down or do any secondary cleanup on it, fine. The same with this. Just make sure that it's going to run cleanly through here, because at some point you can see when it's rolling around, before this reaches the end, the front needs to engage on this on the correct side before that exits that. So there we go. And then it changes direction. So works pretty well, but to assemble it, you can hold that in place. You need to put this cover through here, and you can see it is also keyed. And go about halfway in. Put your gear in, place the guide, and then slide it in past the oh, there we go. And there it is. And it's in, and here's the thumb screw for the opposite side. You put that in place, and then screw in your main gear. There we go. And then the PTFE tube, you can cut this to length after you've used it for a while and see what works best for you. Whether it be all the way over towards the spool or whatever, just experiment with it, but that just slides right on. Alright, so that was the trickiest part of the whole thing. And that's just putting the sleeve halfway in. Then you put your bearing, you put the guide on top of the gear, and then slide it in over the sleeve. Right? And here's the front assembly. This is self-explanatory, and there's no key. It's just a slide in, and you can slide in with your thumb screws. Now, if you want, on the donor, you can print off different adapters if you want to, have them on your spool. A lot of times it's not needed, as long as this is just, it just keeps a little more stable. And like I said, with this, you don't even have to use this part of it if you already have, say, something like this. If it's already rolling through something like this, then sure, you don't need to print this off at all. But that's it for this side. Now mounting this, now I just did it on a 2x6 just for testing. But like I said, you can, it's a 2x6, or you can use a piece of shelving, the white boards, that works great too. If I had one of those, I probably would have used that instead of the 2x6. But if you have aluminum extrusions that you can go lengthwise like this, and then attach all the rear, mid, and front assemblies to your aluminum frame, right? That would work pretty well. And let's set that aside. So when you're putting this on, you just screw it down. And I'll go ahead and screw it down, but I'll fast forward it for you. I'm sure you don't want to watch me screw these down. But alright, so with this rear, it's pretty simple. You just screw them down, but make certain that it's as straight as you can. If it's cocked left or right, you know, however many, if it's cocked over to this side, then the filament's going to tend to still bundle up on this other side, right? So if it's tilted this way, your filament will probably still tend to bundle on the right side. So you can see, just keep this as straight as you can, and that helps with the aluminum extrusions. It's probably easier to do it that way. If you're going to do it on a board, measure it off and mark everything so that you have nice squares and able to mount it just as straight as you possibly can. So here's the midsection. So with the midsection, you can see you just butt it up against gear to gear, right? You don't want it too tight or it's going to bind up. You don't want it too loose or it's just going to skip, right? So just put it in place. Have it pretty snug. And there we go. So let me screw this down and we'll keep moving. Alright, well that's about it. Goes on pretty easy. This piece you can go as close as you want or as far back as you want. And like I said, with the PTFE tube, you can have it going all the way to the spool. You can have it all the way to the spool also. That's just up to you, whatever works best for you, right? So you can see you can just screw it down, and this one's not as critical for being as, you know, square. I guess the most important one to be square is the rear assembly. Then the mid assembly, just have it snug here, so gear to gear you have a nice fit, and the front is at your discretion. Alright, well that was it. It's a pretty easy assembly, right? Just a couple of pointers there, but good luck with it. I hope it works for you. If not, give me some pointers. Be sure to comment on printables or on the video. And as always, thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and watch for my next video.